I never thought the person who would take everything from me would be the one I gave everything to. My daughter Rachel stood in my kitchen that Tuesday morning, her designer handbag resting on the counter where I had kneaded bread dough 1,000 times. She wore a crisp white blouse and dark jeans, and her hair was pulled back in a way that made her look older than 32. Professional, distant. She did not touch the tea I had made for her. She just looked at me with those serious brown eyes and said the words that would unravel my entire life. "Mom, you do not need this house anymore." I remember laughing, not because it was funny, but because the statement was so absurd that my brain could not process it any other way. I was standing at the sink, washing the breakfast dishes, and I turned to look at her fully, my hands still wet and covered in soap bubbles. "What do you mean I do not need it?" I asked, smiling, waiting for her to smile back, to tell me she was joking, or leading into some other conversation. But Rachel did not smile. She set her phone down on the counter with a deliberate click and folded her arms across her chest. "You are alone here, Mom. This house is too big for one person. The upkeep is expensive. You are getting older. It does not make sense for you to stay." The water was still running. I could hear it splashing against the stainless steel, could feel the warmth on my fingers, but suddenly, everything felt cold. I turned off the faucet and dried my hands on the dish towel, the one with yellow sunflowers that my mother had given me 20 years ago. "Rachel, I have lived in this house for 34 years, I said slowly, carefully, as if I were explaining something simple to a child. "Your father and I bought this house when you were 2 years old. You grew up here. This is my home." "I know that," she said, and her voice was calm, measured, like she had practiced this speech. "But Dad is gone. I am grown. You are here by yourself. You do not even use half the rooms. It is just not practical anymore." Practical. That word sat between us like a stone. I stared at my daughter, this woman I had raised, and tried to understand when she had become so cold. When had practicality become more important than memory? When had she stopped seeing this house as the place where she took her first steps, where she cried over her first heartbreak, where we celebrated every Christmas and birthday and ordinary Sunday dinner? "I am not selling my house, Rachel," I said firmly. I walked past her to the kitchen table and sat down, needing to feel something solid beneath me. "I do not know why you are even suggesting this." She turned to face me, and I saw something flicker across her expression. Frustration, maybe, or impatience. "I am not suggesting it, Mom. I am telling you that it is what needs to happen. You are being stubborn about this, and it is not good for you." Stubborn. The word came out sharper than I intended. "Rachel, this is my house, my home. I am not being stubborn. I am being rational. Why would I sell the only place I have ever truly belonged?" She sighed, the kind of sigh that made me feel small and foolish, like I was the child and she was the weary parent. "You are not thinking clearly. You are emotional about this. I understand that. But someone has to make the difficult decisions here." I felt my chest tighten. "What are you talking about? What difficult decisions?" "I am perfectly capable of making my own decisions. Are you?" Rachel asked, and there was something in her tone that frightened me. Something that sounded almost like pity, because from where I am standing, it looks like you are clinging to the past, and it is not healthy. "You need to move forward, Mom. You need to downsize, simplify your life. There are lovely assisted living communities where you could assisted living." I stood up so quickly that my chair scraped against the floor. "Rachel, I am 61 years old. I am not dying. I am not incapable. I do not need assisted living. I need my daughter to stop talking about my life like it is something that needs to be managed." For a moment, we just stared at each other. The kitchen, my warm and familiar kitchen with its pale yellow walls and the crack in the ceiling tile that I kept meaning to fix, suddenly felt like foreign territory. I did not recognize the woman standing across from me. Or maybe, I did not recognize myself. "I am trying to help you," Rachel said finally, and her voice was softer now, almost gentle. "I know this is hard to hear, but I am doing this because I love you." Those words should have comforted me. They should have made everything feel better, but they did not. They felt like a warning. "I do not want your help with this," I said quietly. "I want you to respect my choices." Rachel picked up her handbag and slung it over her shoulder. She looked at her phone, then at me, and something passed between us that I could not name. Distance maybe, or the beginning of a fracture I did not yet understand. "I will call you later," she said, and she walked toward the front door. I followed her, my bare feet patting softly on the hardwood floors that I had refinished with my husband 15 years ago. Rachel, wait, but she was already out the door, already walking down the porch steps to her car. She did not look back. She did not wave. She just got in her silver sedan and drove away, leaving me standing in the doorway of my home, feeling like something terrible had just happened, even though I could not explain what it was. I went back inside and closed the door. The house was silent. I walked through the living room, past the couch where Rachel used to build pillow forts, past the bookshelf where her school photos still sat in their frames, past the dining room where we had hosted every holiday meal for 3 decades. I touched the walls as I walked, feeling the texture of the paint, the small imperfections, the places where life had left its mark. This was my house, my life, my history. If you are listening, please stay with me, because what happened next changed everything I thought I knew. The next morning, I woke to the sound of my phone ringing. It was early, barely past 7, and the sunlight was just beginning to filter through my bedroom curtains. I reached for the phone on my nightstand, squinting at the screen. It was a number I did not recognize. I almost let it go to voicemail, but something made me answer. "Hello, Mrs. Patterson." A man's voice, professional and brisk. "Yes, this is she. This is David Chen from Riverside Realty. I am calling to confirm the closing date for the property at 428 Maple Street. We have everything ready to finalize the sale, but we need you to sign a few remaining documents. Can you come into our office this afternoon?" The words did not make sense. They hung in the air like a foreign language, and I sat up in bed, my heart beginning to pound. "I am sorry," I said slowly. "I think you have the wrong number. I am not selling any property." There was a pause on the other end of the line, papers rustling. "Mrs. Patterson, 428 Maple Street. The sale was initiated 8 days ago. Everything has been processed. The buyer is ready to close." My hands started to shake. 428 Maple Street. My address. "There must be a mistake," I whispered. "I did not sell my house. I would never, according to our records." The power of attorney paperwork was filed by Rachel Patterson. "She has been handling the sale on your behalf. I assumed you were aware." I hung up the phone. I do not remember doing it, but suddenly it was lying on the bed beside me, and I was staring at the wall, unable to breathe, unable to think. Rachel had sold my house, without telling me, without asking me. She had looked me in the eye the day before, had that conversation in my kitchen, and she had already set everything in motion. My daughter had taken everything from me, and I had not seen it coming at all. I sat on the edge of my bed for what felt like hours, but when I finally looked at the clock, only 12 minutes had passed. 12 minutes since my entire world had shifted beneath me like sand. 12 minutes since I learned that my daughter had betrayed me in a way I could not yet fully comprehend. My hands were still shaking. I picked up the phone again and stared at the screen, at the unfamiliar number that had delivered such impossible news. Part of me wanted to call it back, to demand answers, to scream at this David Chen person that he was wrong, that there had been a terrible mistake. But a larger part of me, the part that was beginning to understand, knew that calling him would not change anything. I needed to call Rachel. I pulled up her name in my contacts and pressed the button before I could second-guess myself. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times, then her voicemail picked up, her voice bright and efficient. "You have reached Rachel Patterson. Please leave a message and I will return your call as soon as possible." The beep sounded, and I opened my mouth, but no words came out. What was I supposed to say? How do you ask your daughter why she has stolen your life? I hung up without leaving a message. I called again. Voicemail. Again. Voicemail. On the 4th attempt, I finally spoke. "Rachel, this is your mother. I just received a very disturbing phone call from a real estate agent. I need you to call me back immediately, please." My voice cracked on that last word, and I hated myself for it, hated the pleading tone, the desperate edge, but I could not help it. I set the phone down and stood up, needing to move, needing to do something other than sit in this room that suddenly felt like it was closing in on me. I walked downstairs in my nightgown, my feet cold on the hardwood floors, and went to the small office we had set up years ago in what used to be a den. The office was mostly mine now. After my husband Thomas died 3 years ago, I had slowly taken over the space, filling it with my books, my bills, my records. The desk was old oak, heavy and solid, and I pulled open the file drawer where I kept all my important documents. My hands moved through the folders: insurance papers, tax returns, medical records, searching for anything related to the house. The deed was there, exactly where it should have been. In a manila folder labeled property documents, I pulled it out with trembling fingers and spread it on the desk. There was my name, Margaret Ellen Patterson, and Thomas's name, still there, even though he was gone. The house belonged to me. It was mine. How could Rachel have sold something that was not hers to sell? Power of attorney. That is what the man had said. Rachel had filed power of attorney paperwork. I went through the folders again, more frantically this time, pulling out papers and scattering them across the desk. I was looking for something I did not remember signing, something that would give Rachel legal control over my affairs. But I found nothing. I would remember signing something like that. I would never give anyone, not even my daughter, that kind of power over my life, unless I had and simply forgot. The thought came unbidden, and it terrified me. Was I forgetting things? I was 61, not ancient, but old enough that memory gaps were not unheard of. I tried to think back over the past few months, searching for blank spaces, for moments I could not account for, but everything seemed clear. I remembered conversations, appointments, the mundane details of daily life. I had not signed anything giving Rachel power of attorney. I was certain of it. But if I had not signed it, then how had she done this? I left the office and went to the kitchen, that familiar space that now felt tainted by yesterday's conversation. I made coffee because I needed something to do with my hands, needed the ritual of it. While it brewed, I stood at the window and looked out at my backyard. The grass needed mowing. The flower beds I had planted in May were starting to fade with the approach of fall. The oak tree that Thomas and I had planted when Rachel was 5 stood tall and strong in the corner of the yard, its leaves just beginning to turn gold at the edges. This was my home. Every inch of it held a piece of me, a piece of my family, a piece of the life we had built together. How could Rachel not understand that? How could she think I did not need this anymore? The coffee finished brewing, and I poured myself a cup, adding cream and sugar the way I always did. The normalcy of the action felt absurd given everything that was happening, but I clung to it anyway. I carried the cup to the kitchen table and sat down, wrapping my hands around the warm ceramic. My phone was still upstairs. I should go get it, should check to see if Rachel had called back, but I could not bring myself to move. Instead, I sat there in the quiet morning light, drinking my coffee and trying to make sense of something that defied all logic. The doorbell rang at 9:30. I was still in my nightgown, still sitting at the kitchen table with my now cold coffee. For a moment, I considered not answering it. I was not ready to face anyone, was not ready to pretend that everything was fine. But the bell rang again, more insistent this time, and I forced myself to stand and walk to the front door. Through the window, I could see my neighbor Ellen, standing on the porch, holding what looked like a casserole dish covered in aluminum foil. Ellen was 73, a widow like me, and we had been neighbors for over 20 years. She had a kind face and a tendency to show up at exactly the right or wrong times, depending on your perspective. I opened the door, and Ellen's smile faltered when she saw me. "Oh, Margaret, I am sorry. Did I wake you?" No. I have been up for a while. I just have not gotten dressed yet." I tried to smile, but it felt weak and unconvincing. Ellen held out the casserole dish. "I made too much chicken and rice last night, and I thought you might like some. I know you probably have a full refrigerator, but I always think it is nice to have something ready-made. You know, that is very kind of you, Ellen. Thank you." I took the dish, feeling its weight in my hands, and stood there awkwardly in the doorway. Ellen did not leave. She looked at me with those sharp blue eyes that missed very little, and her expression shifted from neighborly pleasantness to genuine concern. "Are you all right, dear? You look pale." "I am fine," I said automatically. "Just a little tired." "You do not look fine." Ellen stepped closer, lowering her voice even though there was no one else around to hear. "Margaret, if something is wrong, you can tell me. You know that, do not you?" The kindness in her voice nearly broke me. I felt tears prick at my eyes, and I had to look away, blinking rapidly. "I am fine, really. Just a difficult morning." Ellen reached out and placed her hand on my arm, a gentle, steadying touch. "Why don't I come in for a few minutes? Let me make you some fresh coffee. You look like you could use the company." I should have said no. I should have sent her home. Should have dealt with this nightmare alone the way I dealt with most things, but standing there in my doorway, still in my nightgown, with the weight of Rachel's betrayal pressing down on me like a physical thing, I found myself nodding. "All right," I whispered. "Yes, please." Ellen followed me inside, and I set the casserole dish on the kitchen counter while she busied herself with making a fresh pot of coffee. She moved around my kitchen with the easy familiarity of someone who had been here countless times before, and there was something comforting about watching her perform these simple tasks. "Now," she said, once we were both seated at the table with steaming cups in front of us, "tell me what is going on." I opened my mouth to deflect, to make up some small lie about being tired or under the weather, but the words that came out were the truth. "Rachel sold my house." Ellen's cup stopped halfway to her lips. "What?" "She sold it, without telling me. I got a call from a real estate agent this morning, saying they need me to sign closing papers, but I did not put the house up for sale. I did not agree to any of this. Rachel did it behind my back." The words sounded insane, even as I said them, but Ellen did not look at me like I was crazy. She set her cup down carefully, and leaned forward. "How is that possible? She cannot just sell your house without your permission." The agent said something about power of attorney, that Rachel filed paperwork giving her the authority to handle the sale. "But Ellen, I never signed anything like that. I would remember. I would never give anyone control over my home." Ellen was quiet for a moment, her fingers tapping against her cup. "Did you ask Rachel about this? I called her 4 times this morning. She is not answering." My voice broke, and I pressed my hand against my mouth, trying to hold back the sob that was threatening to escape. "I do not understand why she would do this. Yesterday she came over and told me I did not need this house anymore, and I thought it was just a strange conversation, a disagreement, but she had already started the process. She looked me in the eye and lied to me." "Oh, Margaret." Ellen reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was paper thin and spotted with age, but her grip was strong. "I am so sorry. That is unforgivable. I must have done something wrong," I said, the words tumbling out before I could stop them. "I must have failed her somehow, must have been a bad mother for her to do this to me. I keep trying to think of what I did, what I said." "Stop that right now." Ellen's voice was sharp, cutting through my spiral. "You did not do anything wrong. You are one of the best mothers I have ever known. I watched you raise that girl, watched you sacrifice for her, support her, love her unconditionally. Whatever Rachel is doing, whatever her reasons are, this is not your fault." I wanted to believe her. I wanted to let those words sink in and absolve me, but the guilt was there, heavy and persistent, whispering that good mothers did not end up betrayed by their daughters. We sat in silence for a while, drinking our coffee, and I was grateful that Ellen did not try to fill the quiet with empty reassurances or advice. She just sat with me, present and solid, and that was enough. When she finally left, promising to check on me later, I went upstairs to shower and dress. I needed to look presentable. I needed to feel like myself, even if everything else was falling apart. I chose a simple blue sweater and jeans, pulled my graying hair back into a ponytail, and looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. I looked tired, older than I had yesterday, but I also looked determined. I was not going to let this happen without a fight. I went back to the office and found the business card that the real estate agent must have mentioned. I had to search through my recent mail, and there it was, a letter from Riverside Realty, dated a week ago, that I had apparently received but not opened. My hands shook as I tore it open now. Inside was a detailed breakdown of the sale, the buyer's offer, the closing date, which was set for 3 days from now, and at the bottom, a note: "Please contact us at your earliest convenience to finalize the necessary signatures." 3 days. I had 3 days before I lost everything. I picked up my phone and dialed Rachel's number again. This time, she answered on the second ring. "Mom," she said, and her voice was carefully neutral. "I saw your calls. I am sorry I missed them. I was in a meeting, Rachel." I kept my voice steady, even though my heart was racing. "I need you to come over right now. We need to talk." There was a pause, and I could hear background noise, traffic maybe, or voices. "I cannot right now. I have appointments all day. Can we talk tonight?" "No." The word came out harder than I intended. "Not tonight. Now. This cannot wait." Another pause, longer this time. Then, quietly, "What is this about, Mom?" "You know exactly what this is about." Silence. And in that silence, I heard everything I needed to know. My daughter was not going to save me. She was not going to fix this. She had done exactly what I feared. And she was not sorry. I will be there in an hour, Rachel said finally, and the line went dead. I set the phone down and looked around the office, at the scattered papers on the desk, at the proof of a life lived in this house. And I wondered how you prepare for a conversation that will either save your world or confirm its ending. I had 1 hour to find out.